Good morning.
How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for taking out the time and sharing your views with us. So
It's a pleasure.
congratulations on your ISB admit.
It was all your help. Couldn't have done it without you.
I know it's extremely great work. Sarthak, let's first hear about your profile. Your work experience is very interesting. What all were the things that were important for you when you were selecting the MBA programs?
I am from a merchant navy background. I did my BTech nautical technology from Tulani Maritime Institute, and I was placed in a container shipping company called Maersk. It's one of the bigger ones, and I've been working with them since 2018. So I started off with them as a cadet. I did 2 ships there, and then after that I became a licensed government of India licensed officer. I've been sailing as a navigating officer. I did 2 ships as a third officer, and then I got promoted, and now I've completed 2 ships as a second mate as well. I have approximately 6 years and 4 years as a experienced officer, work ex basically. When I was trying to actually find an MBA program, I got this much experience in merchant navy, and then I realized that this is just a very small aspect of the whole operations and supply chain domain, and I wanted to explore the managerial side of things. So I tried to find a lot of different MBA programs even abroad, but none of them fit my specifications. I was a little reluctant in the beginning to give my GMAT. I was thinking if there is a course which can take me without giving an exam, I would rather take that. I was trying to take a shortcut. But all the courses which I found were not to my liking and not to the standard I felt. So then I decided to pursue a GMAT. And eventually I gave the GMAT, and I had ISB in mind because there was a lot of common. If I compare India with outside, there were a lot of factors which helped me decide India, because India is a growing economy right now. Plus, the level of education which I can get at all these 2, 3 top institutes at India is at par with what I can get in any institution abroad. And if I actually want to move abroad later on, there can always be opportunities open. So I decided to give ISB a shot, and I wanted some other colleges as well, but I was not really eligible for IM A, B, C because my work ex was not enough as per their requirement. So it was actually just ISB and IMK, the top 2 colleges for me. And luckily, I got into ISB.
And you mentioned initially that you were not very keen on writing the GMAT. It's always, let's say, an inertia which sets in when you start with the test prep. And also, how was the test prep journey for you, especially when you were traveling most of the time?
Yeah, so I was very lost. I mean, I wish I could have taken help of a consultant sooner, because I was very lost and I was just looking at different avenues to try to see what I can do and what not. So there was a resistance initially, but then when I decided to give the GMAT, since there was no proper guided help for me, I just started looking up at YouTube videos from all these different channels. Then I bought the OGs and I started practicing from that. So first 2 or 3 months I practiced enough, gave different mocks, purchased a few mocks and gave them. So I was getting around 700. But when I gave my GMAT exam, I fell a little short. So I decided within 1.5 months I'll give another attempt. That's when I took this EG-MAT coaching, and it actually was a good. I mean, I felt because I had a base already ready, so it kind of gave me a structure to help me with the prep where I was lacking. Because when you do it alone, you don't realize what all are you missing, and a structured course can help you fill in the gaps. My quant was actually quite decent. I was lacking a little in the verbal section, so it did help me improve that, and I got to a not so good but a decent score. But yeah, the main part I feel about giving the GMAT is the mental barrier, because I hadn't studied in 3, 4 years. So when I sat down to study, I couldn't even do the basic quant problems for the first few days. I always used to think my quant is good, but I was like, where has that gone? Within a week or so, you start getting into the zone, and then I mean the flow starts beginning building. It was fairly easy.
Regular mock tests and regular practice, I think, is very important for.
Yes, yes, exactly. And like every single day you have to study, because of any break in between can just disrupt the flow. Proper schedule has to be there. 1 or 2 weeks of prep, you have to start giving mocks just to know the level and how the progression is going on. Some of these OG original mocks, they are pretty close to the actual test. That's the best way to judge your own self.
Correct. Coming to the application has again two parts. One is the essays and writing the application and submitting multiple applications together is the challenge. And the second part is the interview prep. So in terms of the application, how did you go about, settling the personal brand and getting into the storytelling part?
I had to go on the ship when I had to write my essays. Like my timing was such that I had to do all my application part from the ship. Just before that, we connected and we started working together. After connecting with you only, I realized how important an essay is for the application. I knew it was important, but the actual importance and the emphasis it plays in your application is the questionnaire which you sent me initially helped me introspect a lot. I just never gave it a thought and realized that there is something. Once you introspect, you write it all down, you realize yes, there are achievements which you can actually portray, and it helps to build the perspective of, I mean, it has helped me to build my perspective of who I am and how I work right now professionally. It's that guided effort basically. I remember your questionnaire, and even then in the questionnaire, because sometimes it's a little difficult to introspect about your strengths, weakness. So I remember us having a conversation, one of the initial ones, and you picked up a weakness and you told me to go ahead with this one, and then I wrote up the story around it, whatever had happened related to that, and then we actually portrayed it in the real essay itself. Your help was prime because I mean I am not very good with refining all these things. So I wrote my story, I gave it to you, you helped me out with that, and you refined it in such a beautiful way that it all connected together. Your help was the most important.
There are many good stories that you have, but you don't realize it unless you brainstorm and you look at other aspects of, what can be learned from a story. So that's probably where things, when you're discussing these things.
And many of these things are not even in the forefront. Like they are very small things which a person doesn't even realize that it's important enough. I couldn't have realized it myself. I really feel that.
And what about the interview experience? How was the preparation and how was the ISB interview experience for you?
Right after the application was done, we did not wait for the result. And we started with the interview prep right after that. You gave me a list of questions to prepare, the basic ones, and obviously it's all personalized later on. So I thought about those questions, I introspected a little. In the first interview interaction which we had, I remember you said to me that my answers are not somehow convincing enough. So I had to rethink and I had to sit back and reevaluate what I was doing wrong, because you gave me a path basically and I had to figure it out myself, which I really appreciated. And eventually the interview prep started building, because every interview we used to have, I used to get some feedback from you. And the best thing which I liked was there was no limit on the number of interviews. I remember you had told me my interview was 4 or 5 days away. You had told me let's connect 2 or 3 times, whatever as per my availability, because my internet wasn't good and there were a lot of problems which we faced. But yeah, a lot of number of interviews and the proper critical feedback which I got, that was very important. And then I used to look at the recorded videos to realize how am I delivering and what am I not saying correctly and where is it going wrong. Thorough reviews and your help was the key basically.
And it was jittery at times because of the internet, but that didn't, stop the interaction. So having a lot of interactions does help in that. And so people are, looking at options of applying to ISB. They have aspirations of applying to ISB. What would be some suggestions that you would have for the future aspirants, as well as in terms of, things which are probably myths, things that you hear about the whole process, but which probably did not turn out to be true for you. So, any myths that were debunked, or any suggestions and tips for the future applicants?
The most important I would say is be true to the story, be true to who you are. People try to make up like total lies and exaggerate on their interviews. I would suggest not do that, because in the interview if they ask you something and to cover up a lie you have to say 1,000 lies more, and they are smart enough people who will actually realize it. And I also had an opinion that this ISB interview would be like a grilling session, because many of my friends had such experience where they were nice people but they were grilling them a lot. For me, I was very, there were two young alumni who were taking my interview, and they were very sweet because, as I told you, my internet got disconnected 3 times during a 30 minutes call. My Zoom call got disconnected, and they were still kind enough to continue with the call. So I would say you have to go in with a free mind. If you take a lot of pressure on yourself, it won't work out. Just you have to relax and give the interview. there's a step-by-step process for the application, all the hobbies and everything a few months in advance, so you can actually build your application and you don't have to rush through, because a lot of refining and a lot of work has to go into it. And on the interview day, you just need to relax, just make sure all the external things are taken care of. I'm sure the people who are taking the interviews, they are good and they can actually see the potential if you have. So there's no need for us to overthink about it, which I did a lot even after the interview got finished.
Correct.
Ma'am, the reason why I chose you was I had a word with a few consultants. All of them, they mentioned the price in the first call, and they mentioned the number of hours and the number of interviews and the reviews and all of that. When we had the first call, I told you about my GMAT score, which was not that great. And you told me it's done. Now we'll focus on what's ahead of us, which is the application. And you told me that this is the high time now and we have to start preparing. You didn't mention anything about the money, no restrictions, nothing. And you were very honest and you were very brutal with what the situation was. This was the thing which made me choose you. And plus, I had a reference of a friend who had gotten selected, so I had that trust as well. So I would suggest anyone who is applying, if you can take criticism well, if you actually want to work, then I would definitely have, because I'm very happy with the way we have worked together and the way you have guided me.